Okay, it's 6:33. We'll call this meeting to order. Are we going to rise and pledge allegiance?
Yep. Pledge allegiance. Yep.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
which
stands,
it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
Oh, that's funny that the transcript started. I didn't realize we had a transcript.
I think Legia must have set it up. So
Yeah, that's kind of cool. All right.
So if we get a roll call, Angela?
yep, I can do that. All right, Commissioner Korn.
Here.
Okay, Commissioner Melcher.
Here.
Commissioner Wolthius. Don't know. Commissioner Parker. Don't know. Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Commissioner Journey, and she did tell us she wasn't going to be here. And then Commissioner Lohman.
Here.
Okay. So 4 present, 3 absent. We have a quorum.
That's Ray.
Yes. All right.
So does anybody know where we left off last time?
Yes.
We did, and we're going to try something new tonight. So we actually have a way to let the computer read it. So Blair and I don't have to do this. So if you have a question, let us know because I can pause it. But give me just 1 second here.
We're
What's
in.
the best way
We're
to
on
do
page
that?
3-20. That's
Tab 20.
yeah.
The
Tab. Is it tab 20? Yeah, it's tab 20. It's the first tab 20.
Screen.
Off-street parking and
Where
loading.
did it go?
What's that?
I'm sharing a screen, but
Where did you say we're starting?
Well, is it red around
Tab
your screen?
20.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if that disappears and it just goes to your.
Yep.
to
Off-street
they can see
parking and
this?
loading.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They
Yep.
can see that.
okay, but these guys can't.
If you want them to see it, you'll have to move it to the other screen.
Oh, I see. I have to go like this.
Yeah. But you'll have to go back and stop sharing your screen because now they can't see it. So
Oh, so I got to bring it back.
No. Leave it
Oh.
up there. So go back to Teams. And click on the.
This one?
See that box with the X in the middle of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, click on that. That's to stop sharing your screen. And so now.
But I want to share my screen though.
Right, but you'll share your screen again, but you'll tell it to share a different screen. Now you choose. If you click on where it says window, click on that, and now click on.
Article 3.
Yep. There we go. Now they can see that.
Okay.
Does everybody see the document there?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So here we go. We're going to try this. Sorry. Oh, it's going backwards. Okay.
Are you guys hearing it? I'm hearing nothing.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything on my end.
Oh, you're not hearing it?
Okay, that's why I think I have to bring it back over here.
No,
it
not hearing
doesn't
it.
matter what screen it's on.
Because it was the button that I pushed on here, so hold on.
So
You guys could just microphone closer to a speaker.
hold on a second.
So this? Oh,
Oh.
okay, here we go. That has to be on.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Try it now.
So, tell me.
Of additional floor area, seating capacity, or other expansion of an
Can you hear that?
existing building or structure.
Yes.
Change use exception.
Okay.
A change in the use of an existing building or structure to another use permitted in the underlying zone shall not require additional parking spaces or off-street loading areas. 17.44.030 Location.
So this is an area that, if anybody needs to pause for any reason, please let us know. Speak up. Don't be shy. The computer voice can go through kind of fast, and we don't want to lose any of our conversational discussion that we've had. So I just wanted to point out this change of use exception. This is new to this draft, and because right now, if somebody, say we have a building downtown that used to be a drugstore, and now it is being turned into a restaurant. There may be a different parking standard for that. And so right now in our code, that change of use means they have to meet the current code for whatever parking requirements are, even though there's an existing building. And changing the amount of parking you have when you have an existing structure is immensely difficult to do. You got to have buy the land or make the deals with neighboring property owners to do. So this provision would change that, and it would make it so that if there are any existing buildings or structures that just change to a different use, they don't have to meet the new parking standard, which is a lot more convenient. It doesn't solve the fact that there's no parking, but at least it means that that business can still get started, and the city has a bigger problem of trying to figure out making sure there's enough parking downtown.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Location. Off-street parking and loading areas shall be provided on the same lot with the main building or structure or use except that. Yards. Off-street parking areas may be located in a required yard setback for multifamily residential, commercial, and industrial uses within approved 10-foot landscaped buffer. B. Residential. In residential zones, automobile parking for dwellings and other uses permitted in a residential zone may be located on another lot if such lot is within 200 feet of the lot containing the main building, structure, or use. In no case shall the parking requirements at the off-site location be reduced, unless otherwise approved as joint-use parking. C. Parking. Driveways may be used for off-street parking for single-family and two-family dwellings. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-21. D. Non-residential. In non-residential zones, parking may be located off the site of the main building, structure, or use if it is within 500 feet of such site. In no case shall the parking requirements at the off-site location be reduced, unless otherwise approved as joint-use parking. 17.44.040 Joint Use. Parking area may be used for a loading area during those times when the parking area is not needed or used. Parking areas may be shared between uses where hours of operation or use are staggered such that peak demand periods do not occur simultaneously. The requirements of this chapter may be reduced accordingly. Such joint use shall not be approved unless satisfactory evidence is presented which demonstrates the access and parking rights of all parties. 17.44.050 General Provisions Off-Street Parking and Loading. A parking required. The provision and maintenance of off-street parking and loading space is a continuing obligation of the property owner. No building permit shall be issued until plans are presented that show property that is and will remain available for exclusive use as off-street parking and loading space. The subsequent use of property for which the building permit is issued shall be conditional upon the unqualified continuance and availability of the amount of parking and loading space required by this development code. B. Interpretation of parking requirements. Requirements for types of buildings and uses not specifically listed herein shall be determined by the city planner based upon the requirements of comparable uses listed and expectations of parking and loading need. C. Multiple use facilities. In the event several uses occupy a single structure or parcel of land, the total requirements for off-street parking shall be the sum of the requirements of the uses computed separately, unless a reduction is approved for shared parking pursuant to section 17.44.040. D. Storage prohibited. Required parking spaces shall be available for the parking of operable passenger automobiles of residents, customers, patrons, and employees only, and shall not be used for storage of vehicles or materials. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Code.
So on location residential, so 030B for residential parking. So if you had a home and it didn't have adequate parking, you could park at the neighbor's house
So we,
as long as it's within
030,
200 feet.
Which part?
B, residential.
I think that's mainly intended for multifamily. But, or, so it could be also with the plan development, you know, so because you have your requirement for a driveway and garage or carport for a home, and then you're also required to have 2 off-street spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have, for instance, a home that's got a single car garage, and has a driveway to that, it's technically only 1 off-street parking space for that house, and so it wouldn't meet the standard. But suppose that neighborhood has an HOA and has a lot in the middle of it at a community, some kind of amenity that the neighborhood has, then that you could basically, this is basically saying that one of the spots in that lot could qualify for, as long as it's close enough, within 200 feet.
Okay, so not
So-
just like on someone else's private property,
I mean,
park
it
at the
could
neighbors
be
across the street.
Yeah, it could be interpreted that way. I think.
What would
that's something
stop somebody?
We might want to clarify that, because I can see that being abused and having a developer try to say, well, that person's off-street parking is over on this lot, and once both lots are sold, you got no control over it.
Yeah,
So this probably needs some fleshing out, and
I mean, I can see that maybe as a variance.
would you like to see, do you think this should be more of a variance, or?
I would say it could be an option if someone's property were constrained, that we might be able to wiggle some parking, the required parking, by putting it somewhere else.
What if it specified that this couldn't be, that this had to be a lot that was owned or managed by the development or HOA, and not just another home in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, another home doesn't get it.
Yeah, so if we just specify in there, on a lot owned or managed by
Hmm.
the neighborhood housing homeowners association or property manager,
Yeah.
something like that.
And would it be like a review process, ministerial review, or just
As-
applied with a building permit?
As this is written, the way this is written now, this is just under it would be approved as part of, if it's an allowed use in that zone, it would,
Okay.
just administrative. It wouldn't be a variance or a conditional use for
Okay.
that kind of thing.
Because if it was another person's property, couldn't it change all the time with somebody who sold the house? If they,
Yeah,
this is my property?
yeah, that's the thing. It can't be on another home lot, because then you have no control over
Yeah.
whether it continues. So you'd have
So it needs to be
on
owned by
some sort of
an
community
entity
property.
versus like a private home.
Right. We can get some language in there to tighten that up. I think it's basically specifying that it's either something owned by the housing development
Yeah.
or an HOA that's managing it.
Yep. Okay.
And Angela, I think every time it gets to a new page, it must be reading the headers.
Yeah.
It reads the top header and then the bottom header and then does the middle. So I believe what you can do is you can just highlight things and it'll only read what's highlighted. But or you can tell it to read the entire document.
So you guys had it easy by not reading that part.
Right. We got to do it all over again because we weren't reading the headers.
060.
Yep. So it'll be interesting to see how it handles this table. I might have to.
Article 3 Development Requirements.
No, it just goes.
Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-22.
Now it'll go back.
17.44.060 Off-Street Automobile and Bicycle Parking Requirements. Vehicle parking spaces. Provisions for off-street vehicle and bicycle parking shall comply with the following minimum requirements. Vehicle and bicycle parking space requirements. Land use activity vehicle spaces bicycle spaces measurement. A 1, 2, and 3 family dwellings accessory dwelling 2 spaces per dwelling unit 1 space per accessory dwelling 0 none. B multifamily dwellings, 4 or more units, studio, 1 space / unit 1 to 2 bedroom, 1.5 spaces / unit 3 plus bedroom, 2 spaces / unit. 0.25 per dwelling unit. C hotel, motel, boarding house 1 space per guest room plus 1 space for the owner or manager 1 per 20 guest rooms. D club, lodge spaces sufficient to meet the combined minimum requirements of the uses being conducted, such as hotel, restaurant, auditorium, etc. 2 per 20 vehicle spaces. E hospital, nursing home 1 space per 2 beds and 1 space per 2 employees 0.5 per 5 beds. F public assembly, churches, auditorium, stadium, theater 1 space per 4 seats or every 8 feet of bench length, or 60 square foot of area without fixed seats. 1 per 20 vehicle spaces. G preschool, kindergarten, elementary, junior high school. Greater of 2 spaces per classroom, or the requirement for a place of public assembly. 2 per classroom. H high school greater of 8 spaces per classroom, or the requirement for a place of public assembly. 1 per classroom. I bowling alley, skating rink, community center 1 space per 100 square foot plus 1 space per 2 employees 1 per 20 vehicle spaces. J retail store, except as provided in K 1 space per 500 square foot plus 1 space per 2 employees 1 per 20 vehicle spaces.
When you're
Article 3 Development Requirements.
on the.
Sweet Home.
Yeah.
Saying 1 bicycle per classroom when it's, say, if there's.
So 1 bicycle space per classroom. Yeah.
Was it just 1?
Mhm.
Would you have 30 students in a classroom?
Yeah. Yeah. For the building, you count up the number of classrooms, and that's another number of bicycle spaces need to be in the parking lot.
So there's more people than classrooms.
Oh, certainly. This is probably not expecting that everybody's going to ride a bike, and so I guess the question is, how many people at that development will likely be riding a bike? It could be that this is off, and that's one of the reasons for this review. Do we think that 1 space per classroom is big enough?
Because depending on where the school is, and if it's a community that's built around the school,
Right.
a lot of those kids are probably gonna ride their bicycles.
Sure.
This school, so they can get, because a bus doesn't usually drop off somebody if it's
Yeah.
within 100 feet or something.
Yeah.
And so I could see that not being a problem.
Well, it could. I guess the question is, in our area, right now we have 1 high school in town. It's got I guess 630 or so is what I read is the number of students there right now. But the area served by that high school is pretty significant, and so there's a lot of people that live far enough away that they wouldn't be riding bikes. But there certainly are some that are. I guess the question is, what's appropriate for our area? What do we think would be utilized?
I live a couple blocks from Oak Heights,
Mhm.
so kids walk by my house every day,
Mhm.
going to and from walk. I don't see any bicycles.
Yeah.
They're walking with their backpacks and talking and kind of in groups. I don't see any bicycles at all. I mean, I think bicycling would make more sense. But
I think it'd be great
but
if
they
we had
walk.
more of a culture of bicycling, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, right now we don't. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean we shouldn't encourage
I
it.
know.
I guess the question is, how much do we encourage that?
Yeah.
I think this is a good, solid coded minimum, and it would be prudent for the schools to adjust if more bicycles started getting there, you know?
I think
Yeah.
that's a good point too.
Yeah, they could easily do that. Yeah.
Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-23. K-service or repair shop, retail store handling exclusively bulky merchandise such as automobiles or furniture. 1 space per 800 square feet of gross floor area, plus 1 space per 2 employees. 1 per 30 vehicle spaces. L-Bank, office buildings, medical and dental clinic 1 space per 400 square foot of gross floor area, plus 1 space per 2 employees. 1 per 20 vehicle spaces. M eating and drinking establishment greater of 1 space per 4 seats, or 1 space per 400 square foot of gross floor area. 1 per 20 vehicle spaces. N wholesale establishment 1 space per 1,000 square foot of gross floor area, plus 1 space per 800 square foot of retail area. 1 per 30 vehicle spaces. O municipal and governmental 1 space per 800 square feet, plus 1 space per 2 employees 1 per 20 vehicle spaces. P manufacturing and processing, 1 space per employee during the largest shift, plus 0 to 24,900 square foot 1 space per 800 square foot 1 per 20 vehicle spaces. 25,000 to 49,999 square foot 1 space per 900 square foot 1 per 20 vehicle spaces. 50,000 to 79,999 square foot 1 space per 1,000 square foot 1 per 20 vehicle spaces. 80,000 to 199,999 square foot 1 space per 1,200 square foot 1 per 20 vehicle spaces. 200,000 square foot and over 1 space per 2,000 square foot 1 per 20 vehicle spaces. Q warehousing and storage distribution, terminals 1 space per employee during the largest shift, plus 0 to 49,999 square foot 1 space per 3,000 square foot 1 per 30 vehicle spaces. 50,000 square foot and over 1 space per 5,000 square foot 1 per 30 vehicle spaces. Article 3 Development Requirements. Suite Home Development Code.
So one thing I'm noticing here on some of these requirements, it gives 2 different options. For example, bank, or no, restaurant I think was the one that stuck out to me. Eating and drinking establishment. Oh, it says greater of. I missed the greater of part. Never mind. Okay. I thought there were some where it didn't really specify which one it was, which one should be used, but apparently it does say greater of. So never mind on that.
Code 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-24. B bicycle spaces. Bicycle parking development requirements. 1 space size. Each bicycle parking space shall be a minimum of 6 feet long and 2 feet wide and be accessible by a minimum 5-foot aisle. 2 location. All bicycle parking shall be within 100 feet from a building entrance, S, and located within a well-lit area. Any long-term bicycle parking spaces shall be sheltered from precipitation. See maximum vehicle parking spaces. The minimum spaces identified under item A in this section shall not be increased by more than 30%. 17.44.070 Off-street loading requirements. Commercial or industrial buildings between 10,000 to 25,000 square feet in area shall require a loading space. This initial loading space may incorporate the parking area. 1 additional space shall be required for each additional 25,000 square feet of gross floor area, or any portion thereof. The minimum loading space dimensions shall be 12 feet wide, 30 feet long, and 14 feet high. 17.44.080 Parking and loading area development requirements. All parking and loading areas shall be developed and maintained as follows. A surfacing. All driveways, parking, and loading areas shall have a durable hard surface of asphaltic cement or concrete. Surface improvements shall conform to the following. 1.
I'm confused here on the off-street loading requirements. It says the minimum loading space dimensions shall be 12 feet wide, 30 feet long, and 14 feet high. How does a loading space? Well,
I think maybe like if you had an awning off the side of your building that was less than 14 feet, then maybe that's not where you were allowed to put your loading.
oh, that it has to have clearance?
Yeah.
14 feet high of clearance? Okay.
That's what I read. I mean, kind of like bridges and power
Okay.
lines. And
That does
everything
make
for trucks and
sense.
For the big
Yeah.
trucks.
No, I get that. I'm just, I found it a puzzling way to describe that. That maybe it should just say 12 feet wide, 30 feet long, with 14 feet vertical clearance.
That sounds a lot better.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Because otherwise, I'm just imagining a 14-foot high concrete block that you, it doesn't make any sense. Okay. And then the other thing I noticed is it gives a minimum dimension of bicycle spaces, but it doesn't give a minimum dimension of vehicle spaces, which seems to be an oversight. If we're going to specify a size of bike space,
They've
why
got
not?
them on the next.
It might have it somewhere else.
For
but-
multifamily.
Okay, so maybe it. All right, maybe that's why, because it'll do it later. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's fine then. Yep.
Paving improvements. Paving shall comply with adopted engineering standards of the City of Sweet Home. 2. Timing. Unless modified by a variance or a site development review, or bonded per city requirements, all driveways and off-street parking and loading areas shall be improved prior to occupancy of the primary structure. 3. Surfacing options for industrial zone. The city engineer may allow the use of a graveled parking area in the industrial zones, provided surface drainage is addressed per engineering standards and at least 20 feet of each access driveway connecting with a public street is paved. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-25. B. Parking spaces. Parking spaces shall be a minimum 9 feet wide and 20 feet in length. Up to 20% of the parking area may contain compact spaces with dimensions of 8.5 feet in width and 18 feet in length. C. Driveways. The following standards shall apply to all driveways. 1. Single-family residence, duplex and triplex A. If one driveway is installed, no driveway width shall be less than 12 feet nor exceed 24 feet as measured at the property line. For lots or parcels exceeding 100 feet in width, the driveway width shall not exceed 36 feet. B. If more than one driveway is installed, for property with 50 to 100 feet of frontage, the maximum width for each driveway is 20 feet and no more than 2 driveways may be permitted. For frontage in excess of 100 feet, each additional 100 feet or fraction thereof shall be considered as separate frontage. C. Driveways shall be limited to off-street parking, and the parking and storage of recreational vehicles. 2. Multifamily, commercial, industrial and public uses. A. Without adjacent parking, minimums, I. 1 way, 12 feet, 2. 2 way, 24 feet. B. With adjacent parking, parking angle driveway width 0 to 40 12 feet * 41 to 45 13 feet * 46 to 55 15 feet * 56 to 70 18 feet * 71 to 90 26 feet * one way only driveways. C. There shall be a minimum separation of 22 feet between all driveways. 3. General standards.
I'm just going to pause that for a second because I need to focus a little bit on what's this saying.
Where's the asterisk defined at?
So the asterisk means that applies to one-way only driveways. So if you have a parking angle of 0 to 40 degrees, driveway width is 12 feet. So those parking angles, unless you have a 71 to 90 parking angle, you have to have it be a one-way parking lot in that, which makes sense. The whole point of having angled spaces is, although there are some parking lots I've seen where they have it angled one way on one side and
But they've
the
got
other way on the
wider
other.
in the middle, it seems like.
And those are, well, actually I've seen some without that divider, and it's a two-way thing, but you can only go to the right to park.
Okay.
The other side has to be the people coming toward you, and
Okay.
frankly, it's really annoying. I don't
Yeah.
care for it, but that must be what it's talking about.
Hmm.
So, okay. That makes sense now, because if,
So if you have a property frontage 50 to 100 feet, you could potentially have two separate driveways. Is that what it's saying in B?
so yes, it sounds like if your property frontage is less than 50 feet, that you don't,
You can have one maximum 24-foot drive.
yeah,
But if you're bigger than 50 to 100 street frontage, you could potentially have two
Two.
driveways, but only up to 20 feet, not up to 24.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on that or thoughts? It's making sense to me now. All right, I'll continue.
Standards. A distance from intersection. All driveways shall be located the maximum distance which is practical from a street intersection, and in no instance shall the distance from an intersection be closer than the following measured from the nearest curb return radius, which is the nearest beginning point of the arc of a curb. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-26. Where streets of different functional classification intersect, the distance required shall be that of the higher classification.
So it's skip
that table.
Essentially, if it's on a local street, a driveway nearest the intersection can't be closer than 20 feet from the curb return radius. So the end of the arc of that corner. 20 feet, and then a collector street, 30 feet, arterial street, 40 feet. Okay, go ahead.
Classification. B. Number of accesses permitted. Access points to a public street shall be the minimum necessary to provide reasonable access while not inhibiting the safe circulation and street carrying capacity. C. Double frontage properties. Properties which have frontage on more than one street may be restricted to access on the streets of a lower classification through site plan review or other review procedures. D. Joint access encouraged. Common access sways at a property line shall be encouraged and, in some instances, may be required, in order to reduce the number of access points to street. Construction of common access sways shall be preceded by recording of joint access and maintenance easements. E. Maximum slope. Access and approach grades shall not exceed 10% slope except as otherwise approved by the city engineer. F. Access to state highways. Access to designated state highways shall be subject to the provisions of this chapter in addition to requirements of the Highway Division, Oregon Department of Transportation. Where regulations of the city and state may conflict, the more restrictive requirement shall apply. D. Screening. When any public parking or loading area is within or adjacent to a residential zone, such parking or loading area shall be screened from all residential properties with an ornamental fence, wall or hedge of at least 4 feet in height. The screening shall otherwise comply with applicable height limitations and clear vision requirements. E. Lighting. Any light used to illuminate a parking or loading area shall be arranged to be directed entirely onto the loading or parking area, shall be deflected away from any residential use, and shall not cast a glare or reflection onto moving vehicles on public rights of way. Local street 20 feet. Collector street 30 feet. Arterial street 40 feet. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-27. F. Driveway required. Groups of more than 4 parking spaces shall be so located and served by a driveway that their use will require no backing movements or maneuvering within a street right-of-way. G. Traffic safety. Service drives to off-street parking areas shall be designed and constructed to facilitate the flow of traffic, provide maximum safety of traffic access and egress, and the maximum safety of pedestrians and vehicular traffic on the site. H. Curbing. Parking spaces along the outer boundaries of a parking area shall be contained by a curb or a bumper rail at least 4 high, located a minimum of 3 feet from the property line, to prevent a motor vehicle from extending over an adjacent property or a street. Article 3
All right. Any questions on parking and loading?
We don't currently have engineering standards, do we?
We
Design
have
standards?
we have some that have unfortunately not been formally adopted. They're just kind of in use, and so it puts us in an awkward position, I think, because if somebody challenges us on them, we can't really say
Yeah.
it's the law. We just say this is really what we'd like to see. Most of the time, when we have a bigger development of some kind, commercial development, most of the time it's stuff that the developer wants to do anyway, and so it's not necessarily an issue.
Okay.
But yeah, that's something that we'd like to see happen, is to have more formally adopted standards for all infrastructure.
Yeah.
Development requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-28. 17.46 Storm Drainage and Grading. 17.46.010 Purpose. To provide for the drainage of surface water from all residential, commercial, and industrial development, to minimize erosion, to reduce degradation of water quality due to sediments and pollutants in storm water runoff. 17.46.020 Scope. The provisions of this chapter shall apply to all partitions, subdivisions, multifamily developments, commercial developments and industrial development, and to the reconstruction or expansion of such developments. 17.46.030 Plan for Storm Drainage and Erosion Control. No construction of any facilities in a development included in Chapter 3.101 shall be permitted until a storm drainage and erosion control plan, designed in accordance with the city's engineering standards, for the project is prepared by an engineer registered in the state of Oregon and is approved by the city. This plan shall contain at a minimum of the methods to be used to minimize the amount of runoff, siltation, and pollution created from the development both during and after construction. B. Plans for the construction of storm sewers, open drainage channels and other facilities which depict line sizes, profiles, construction specifications and other such information as is necessary for the city to review the adequacy of the storm drainage plans. C. Calculations used by the engineer in sizing storm drainage facilities. 17.46.040 General Standards. A design standards. All development shall be planned, designed, constructed, and maintained to 1. Protect and preserve existing natural drainage channels to the maximum practicable extent. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-29. 2. Protect development from flood hazards. 3. Provide a system by which water within the development will be controlled without causing damage or harm to the natural environment, or to property or persons within the drainage basin. 4. Assure that waters drained from the development are substantially free of pollutants, through such construction and drainage techniques as sedimentation ponds, reseeding, phasing of grading. 5. Assure that waters are drained from the development in such a manner that will not cause erosion to any greater extent than would occur in the absence of development. 6. Avoid placement of surface detention or retention facilities in road rights-of-way. B. Public easements. In the event a development or any part thereof is traversed by any water course, channel, stream, or creek, gulch or other natural drainage channel, adequate easements for storm drainage purposes shall be provided to the city. This shall not imply maintenance by the city. C. Obstruction of channel. Channel obstructions are not allowed except as approved for the creation of detention or retention facilities approved under the provisions of this development code and in compliance with city engineering standards. D. City inspection. Prior to acceptance of a storm sewer system by the city, the storm sewers shall be flushed and inspected by the city. All costs shall be borne by the developer. 17.46.050 Grading. A grading permits are required for the following activities and shall be subject to City of Sweet Home Public Works standards. 1. Grading in excess of 50 cubic yards. 2. Grading potentially impacting riparian areas, drainage ways, flood hazard areas or greenways. 3. Grading that could possibly impact adjacent properties. 4. Grading proposed over public storm drains, sanitary sewers or water lines. 5. Grading requiring tree removal. 6. Other areas with potential impacts as determined by the city as part of a land use review. Article 3. Development requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 330. 7. Land partitions and subdivisions. B. If the approved grading activity is associated with a building permit, a final grading inspection shall be required prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 331.
Any questions on that section that we just finished?
Yeah, under scope 020, we're going to require a storm drain plan with when someone applies for just a partition.
That's new. Yeah, I mean, right now what we do is we basically say, look, when you develop this, you can't increase the amount of drainage onto any other properties. You have to account for whatever falls on your land, whatever water. And so the building itself, is going to have to address that.
Mm-hmm. But
Personally,
not through
I think
the
it's a good idea
partition, would it?
Well, for a partition, one
With
of the
your
things that
building
we're running
permit.
into with partitions is that we have folks doing kind of a serial partition where they have a series of partitions that gets to the point where they really should have done a subdivision in the first place.
Yeah.
And then by the end, you've heard of this problem.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating for staff to deal with. And I hate to add more of a burden on someone who's just doing a simple partition. But sometimes it's kind of necessary. And so I don't know what to say, what to do to.
Do they have to address that when they apply for their building permit anyways?
I mean, for the house, certainly they're going to have a drainage plan.
They do have to, but even with the partition and property line adjustment applications and those, they have to show where their storm drainage is. So their plans actually have
Okay.
to show all of that stuff.
Okay.
Despite whether they're developing or not, it still has to be shown on the plan itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, just for the potential development, it needs to be on there. So that is what is recorded
Okay.
and goes to the county. So
That makes sense.
Any other questions on that? All right, on to utility lines and
331. 17.48 Utility lines and facilities. 17.48.010 Purpose. To provide adequate services and facilities appropriate to the scale and type of development. 17.48.020 Standards. A design and location. The location, design, installation, and maintenance of all utility lines and facilities shall be carried out with minimum feasible disturbances of soil and site. B. Private utilities. All development which has a need for electricity, gas, and communications services shall install them pursuant to the requirements of the district or company serving the development. Except where otherwise prohibited by the utility district or company, all such facilities shall be underground. C. Water service required. All development which has a need for public water shall install the facilities pursuant to the requirements of the city. Installation of such facilities shall be coordinated with the extension of necessary sanitary sewer services and storm drainage facilities. D. Sanitary sewer required. All development which has a need for public sanitary sewers shall install the facilities pursuant to the requirements of the city. Installation of such facilities shall be coordinated with the extension of necessary water services and storm drainage facilities. E. Subsurface sewage disposal. Installation of subsurface disposal systems shall only be allowed per city's municipal code regulations.
Pause.
F. Streetlights.
I think that particular part we may end up getting rid of because, to my knowledge, there's not going to be allowed any new septic tanks in the city at all.
Right.
And so it's not even possible. So we may just want to change that to say subsurface sewage disposal. No, no new installations of subsurface disposal systems. Period.
What if they are not within 400 feet of a sanitary sewer line?
I think that I'm not sure on. I know that there's been a number of projects over the years that have basically eliminated that as being a possibility. And I know that DEQ has gotten pretty strict. So I think it's something we should check on
Okay.
to see if it's at all possible. But to mine, we have some areas that are 400 feet away, certainly, but they're really large parcels of land that if anyone's going to develop them and partition them and so forth,
They would bring services
they would
down.
have to bring those services up.
Okay.
So I'm not sure there is anything that's really greater than 400 feet from a sewer line. Considering Sweet Home's length,
Yeah.
it's really quite impressive how extensive our sewage collection system is. It's coming from where I was, just thinking about the size of it. It's pretty amazing, actually.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right.
Lights. When required, the installation of street lights shall be pursuant to the requirements of the city engineering standards and the requirements of the utility company serving the development. Easements, general. Easements shall be provided along property lines as deemed necessary by the city, special districts, and utility companies. Easements for special purpose uses shall be of a width deemed appropriate by Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 332. The responsible agency. Such easements shall be designated on the final plat of all subdivisions and partitions. 17.48.030 Public Facility Improvements. All public facility improvements shall be designed and constructed in compliance with adopted City of Sweet Home engineering standards. The Director of Public Works, or his/her designee, shall determine compliance with these standards. These standards are considered requirements and may not be altered pursuant to provisions in this development code.
Any questions on that?
You could probably delete his/her. Public Works Director or designee.
Or designee?
We probably don't need his or
Yeah,
her.
that's probably true.
We're kind of getting
Designee.
away from those pronouns anyways.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Wonder what language we'll be speaking next century.
This is moving right along.
Yeah, we're getting through
I
a
like
lot
it.
here. Now, signs. This next chapter is basically just taking the sign code that we already adopted, and to my knowledge, this was relatively recent. Yeah. Okay. So I know that the other and perhaps the Gregs can enlighten me on this. I've heard it said that this was done recently at great investment of time by the Planning Commission. And so I know on the part of some they were reluctant to make any changes to the sign code. And so I'm going to put it out there. Do we want to read through it? Do we want to just trust that it's fine? What are your thoughts on that?
If it's updated, I mean, the rest of our code is not updated, but
Right.
if signs has since been updated and it's pretty recent.
I don't recall when. Commissioner Stevens, do you recall?
Yeah, it was just a year or two ago. But is this what we came up with, or is this what they came up with?
No, this is what we already had, just put into the new format. So the text should all be the same basically as what we already had.
So it had to have been more than 3 years ago because we didn't do signs since I've been here. But that still is fairly current compared to the rest of it.
Yeah.
Well, time goes fast when you're having fun, you know.
As evidenced by these meetings.
I thought they probably updated it because last year when some of us ran for city council,
Uh-huh.
boy, the sign, code enforcement was out on
Yeah.
signs,
That's true.
you know, even if it was just an inch or almost, you know, it's like, past the telephone pole, you know.
Yeah. Yep. So do you want to read through this, or should we go ahead and skip it and call it good?
I'm okay with skipping it myself, but what does everybody else think?
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. Commissioner Corn, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I perused over signs a little bit, and it seems to be well done. I didn't see anything that stood out to me, so
Yeah.
I'm okay with skipping it if it was recently looked at. I thought it was a few more years ago, like before I was on the planning commission. They redid signs. I think it was when I was on the budget committee. They redid signs.
Okay.
So it was a few years ago.
Okay. And I don't recall, Angela, from a staff perspective, have we had any issues with the sign code? Not the same way we've had with the rest of the development code. It's been fairly easy to use and clear. So that's my main concern as a staff person, is that a lot of the reasons we're going through some of this is that the code is just such a pain to use. But the sign code is reasonable.
At least Sweet Home, from the place I came from, they were so strict, they wouldn't give you any warning or any notice. They would take your sign and destroy it without saving it. At least Sweet Home,
Wow.
if you guys either give notice to somebody,
Yeah.
and you adjust it, or you pull it, and then you say, well, you can come pick it up at City Hall.
Right.
City I lived in, they would destroy it,
Huh.
thinking that everybody should know the code, and even if you were just a little off, they didn't like you, they took your sign.
That seems harsh.
Yeah, so, you guys are at least friendly about that.
Oh, good. All right, that brings us to 3-44,
Ooh, this will be a good one.
fencing and screening.
Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-44. 17.52 Fencing and Screening. 17.52.010 Purpose. Fences can create a sense of privacy, protect children and pets, provide separation from busy streets, and enhance the appearance of property. The negative effects of fences can include the creation of street walls that inhibit police and community surveillance, decrease the sense of community, hinder emergency access, lessen solar access, hinder the safe movement of pedestrians and vehicles, and create an unattractive appearance. These standards are intended to promote the positive aspects of fences and to limit the negative ones. For purposes of this chapter, front yard means a yard extending across the full width of a lot or parcel of land and extending from the front lot line to the entire actual front building line, or shall be the same as the respective front setbacks required by underlying zone, whichever is less. The following standards shall apply to all fences, hedges, and walls. 17.52.020 General Standards. Construction of fences and walls shall conform to all of the following requirements. A permits required. No person shall construct or reconstruct any fence or wall without first obtaining a permit. B. Clear vision areas. All fences, hedges, and walls adjacent to a roadway intersection shall comply with clear vision areas requirements. C. Land use approval. The Planning Commission may require installation of walls and/or fences as a condition of development in a land use approval. When so conditioned by a land use action, no further land use review is required for the fence or wall. D. Measuring fence height. Fence height shall be measured from the average height of the grade adjacent to where the fence is to be located. If a fence is to be constructed on top of a berm, the height shall be measured from the bottom of the berm. Where the natural grade changes, i.e., hillside or swale, the fence, hedge, and wall height shall change with the grade. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-45. Temporary fences. A temporary fence may be constructed with wire, rolled plastic, wood, or other suitable material as determined by the city manager or designee. The city manager or designee shall establish the time duration for a temporary fence not to exceed 12 months. All temporary fences, prior to installation, must first have the approval of the city manager or designee. F. Hedges. Hedges located within 5 feet of a property line abutting a street shall not exceed a maximum height of 3½ feet. G. Gates. Gates shall not open or swing into public right-of-way. 17.52.030 Materials. Fences and walls shall comply with the materials standards set forth in this subsection. A. Fences. Fences shall be constructed of materials specifically designed and manufactured for fencing purposes, including, but not limited to, wood, wrought iron, vinyl, aluminum, and chain link, with a top rail support. Materials not specifically designed as fencing material include, but not limited to, corrugated cardboard, corrugated metal, plywood, wooden pallets, concrete rubble, and junked material, are prohibited. B. Walls. Walls shall be constructed of materials specifically designed and manufactured for use as walls, including, but not limited to, masonry, rock, concrete, concrete block, or other similar materials. C. Hazardous materials. Fences and walls shall not be constructed of or contain any material that will do bodily harm, such as electric or barbed wire, broken glass, spikes, or any other hazardous or dangerous materials, except as follows. 1. Barbed wire is permitted on top of a 6-foot tall fence in the industrial M zone. The total height of the fence and barbed wire is limited to 7 feet. Barbed wire only fences are prohibited except as allowed in subsection A below. A livestock containment. Where cattle, sheep, horses, or other livestock are permitted or existed when the property was annexed to the city, barbed wire is permitted when used to contain or restrict livestock provided that the fences are posted at 15-foot intervals with clearly visible warnings of the hazard. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-46. 2. Above ground electrically charged fences are only permitted when used to pasture or control livestock, for farming, or other similar agricultural uses in zones where such uses are permitted and when the following standards can be met. A. On boundary fences, the electrically charged wires shall be located on the inside face of the fence posts. B. The electrically charged fence shall not exceed 4 feet in height. C. The electrically charged fence shall be a pulsed charge system, and not a continuous charge system. And D. Warning signs stating, warning, electric fence, shall be posted at intervals not less than 15 feet. 17.52.040 Location and height, residential zones. Residential zoning districts, RL, R2, R3, MU. The maximum height of a fence and wall within residential zoning districts shall be as follows. A fences and walls 1. Front yard abutting street. Fences and walls within a front yard abutting a street shall not exceed a maximum height of 3½ feet when constructed with solid materials, i.e. wood fence, or 4 feet when constructed with open material, i.e. chain link fence. 2. Side and rear yards abutting street. Fences and walls located less than 3 feet from a street property line shall not exceed a maximum height of 3½ feet when constructed with solid materials, i.e. cedar fence, or 4 feet when constructed with open material, i.e. chain link fence. B. Fence and walls located more than 3 feet from the street property line shall not exceed a max.
Above it says wood fence, below it says cedar fence. Should we just say wood?
Wood.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And when you're staying in the front yard, 3½ feet, you know, notice person like yard over off Holly, going like if you were going toward Brownsville, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like the, looks like probably maybe the 3½ fence, but then they got the post 6-8 feet tall. Is that allowed?
Posts are fine as long as the fence isn't that high. They probably just hadn't cut the post yet.
It depends on.
I know what house he's talking about.
Yeah, and I think that one. I think they originally were trying to construct one that was not allowed, and then they were told, "Hey, you should have gotten a permit for this, and you're not allowed to have it that tall."
Yeah.
So they're supposed to cut the posts because, frankly, the post is the fence. I mean,
Yeah, I know which one.
specify that
I
the
know which
pickets
one
are
you're
only
talking about.
3.5
Yeah,
feet tall.
I don't know
Yeah.
why they haven't cut the post yet, but yeah.
So they should be, yeah.
Yeah,
Do we have an industrial M zone?
we do.
We do.
We do. Okay.
And I don't know, that's one of the things that we have an industrial zone that is zone M, and I guess M stands for manufacturing or something like that, but I don't know why it can't just be I. The
We have
but maybe
different-
that's because I is looks too similar to 1, and so
I think
Okay.
we do
that's-
M instead.
Maximum height of 7 feet. 3 interior side and rear yards. Fences and walls located at a property line not abutting a street shall not exceed a maximum height of 7 feet. 4 through lots. Fences and walls shall be constructed in accordance with the front setbacks required by underlying zone on both streets. 5 flag lots. On flag lots, the maximum height of a front yard fence or wall shall not exceed 7 feet, provided the front yard of the flag lot is abutting interior side or rear yards on all sides. Fences and walls located in the portion of the pole that abut a front or corner side yard, i.e. from the street property line to the front building line of the adjacent property, or respective front setbacks. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-47. Required by underlying zone, whichever is less, shall not exceed a maximum height of 3½ feet when constructed with solid materials, i.e. cedar fence, or 4 feet when constructed with open material, i.e. chain link fence. 17.52.050 Location and height, non-residential zones. The maximum height of a fence and wall within the commercial and industrial zoning districts shall be as follows. Fences and walls 1. Yards abutting street. Fences and walls located less than 5 feet from a street property line shall not exceed a maximum height of 3½ feet when constructed with solid materials, i.e. cedar fence, or 4 feet in when constructed with open material, i.e. chain link fence. B. Fences and walls located more than 5 feet from the street property line shall not exceed a maximum height of 7 feet. 2. Interior side and rear yards. Fences and walls located at a property line not abutting a street shall not exceed a maximum height of 7 feet. 3. Barbed wire. Concertina barbed wire may be used at the city limits. 17.52.060 Placement of fencing on public rights-of-way or easements. Fences may be constructed on public rights-of-way and/or easements subject to certain restrictions. Construction of fences on public rights-of-way or easements requires permission from the appropriate public agency. The city allows placement of fences on public rights-of-way and certain easements, provided that action does not impair the city's ability to address its public functions and the permit holder agrees to remove the fence upon request. 17.52.070 Pathway fencing. When residential construction includes a walkway intended to be constructed adjacent to these pedestrian-type features.
Was there a question?
Yeah, in 520503 barbed wire, it said concertina barbed wire may be used at city limits.
Yeah, so if you have a property line that is also the city limit line.
That's the
that
only
property
place
line,
you're allowed to use it?
Yep,
So not within city limits.
yep.
Okay.
So I think that's a change. There are areas where there
Okay.
are areas where there is barbed wire.
That's what I thought
Actually,
that
right
I'd
here at
seen
City
that
Hall, I think we have some.
spooled barbed wire at the top of fences somewhere.
I think we have some.
Yeah, we have some here at City Hall from when it was the Forest Service.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in some of the industrial areas, there's some of that too. So, and actually, one of the things being discussed at the council level is a potential homeless facility kind of encampment type thing, and that's been talked about having barbed wire on the fence of that facility. So that's something I should let them be aware of, that the draft we're considering would make that.
Well, I
not
think
allowed, unless
concertina
you want
barbed
to change it.
wire, I think is that just the angled barbed wire at the top of fence, or is that only the razor wire looking spool barbed wire?
That's a good question, and I don't know that that's very well defined.
Because I think there's a big difference between those two.
That's
Yeah,
something-
one's sharper than the other.
Yes, a lot sharper.
What the razor one is like what jails use.
And that might be why this is only at city limits and the other one, because it does say there's some places where the other one is okay.
So that's something that we probably ought to make clear, because
Is there a definition for barbed wire somewhere?
I'm looking up concertina barbed wire right now. Concertina wire.
And that is
Concertina.
what I'm seeing.
Concertina wire is the razor wire.
Right, the big nasty razor wire like at a prison.
Yeah, so that's why it's probably not, why you can't use it inside city limits. So it's the nasty wire.
So I guess, I mean, should we make it clear that other areas barbed wire is permitted? And
I think
and-
it says,
yeah.
didn't
On
we read
top
that?
of a 6-foot fence
Oh.
or 7-foot
okay.
fence.
Where-
Mhm.
Which part did we?
Where did we see that at? I thought I
That
read
was
it.
back.
I know in the livestock it is, and then
Probably industrial zones.
probably industrial.
Yeah. It's the M industrial zone, 030C, number 1,
Oh, materials, that's right. Barbed wire is
That's
permitted.
only in the industrial zone.
Right. Okay.
Livestock, yeah.
All right. Yeah. So it's just it's just concertina barbed wire that's the.
On 040, A2, A and B, fences and walls, on 46, page
Mhm.
46. So they're measuring if you are, I'm trying to do this in my head. If you are more than 3 feet from the street, you can have a maximum 7-foot fence. Is that what
Okay.
I'm seeing?
Right. So if you have a lot,
Oh, I guess
suppose you
it's
have
really-
a corner lot, and
Yeah.
and you want to have your big 6-foot privacy fence, you can't put it right next to the sidewalk on that side. I had a house like that one, and so and it had a fence that was frankly, if under this code, wouldn't be allowed because it was right at the sidewalk line.
So that 3 feet would include this, it's including the sidewalk?
No,
plus
because the
beauty
sidewalk is
strip?
within the public right of way typically. So your property line is at the edge of the sidewalk.
So
Okay,
people usually do is that 3 feet that's right close to there, you do the 3 feet and then you bump up to the 7 feet, so you have that staggered fence.
okay.
So it's just right.
That's for the fences that are perpendicular.
And so that's
to-
usually 3 feet off of the sidewalk, typically?
off of your front property line. So, but which is typically the sidewalk.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you want to have, if you have a,
But if you're on the sidewalk, then you're 3.5 feet.
Correct.
right,
Okay.
yeah. And the point is to keep the sidewalk from feeling like you have a wall right
Yeah.
next to you and you're stuck between this wall of the fence and the
Mhm.
no man's land of the road,
Yeah,
to make it a bit more pleasant.
Are they allowed to put shrubbery that would grow then tall? Or
No, it
does
has
it
to
still
be
have to stay at
It
the
has to stay at the
Well,
same height.
height?
if it's
on the inside of the
if
fence?
you're, well, it just talks about hedges and things like that. I mean, I suppose
You know those
if you put-
green,
if you planted some trees,
that, those green, like
a
pines.
tree is not a
or-
hedge.
No,
So
but
you could plant trees at your property line.
but trees have to be trimmed up for visual purposes, depending on where they're
Depending on
located
where
on
it
your.
is. If it's on the
Yeah.
corner, yes, but if it's in the middle of a block, you could have
Mhm.
trees lining your,
You know those green
Sidewalk.
ferns or whatever those green people put
arborvitae.
in?
Arborvitae.
Yeah, they put them all to block, to make it look like
Yeah,
a fence,
yeah.
kind of like, so
Well, I
would they
gue-
put
I
that
guess it-
inside and block it
That
up?
would be more of a shrub, I think.
that goes back to, whether it's a hedge or not. Typically hedges are something that where it's made to be a kind of like a wall of vegetation. If you just have plants that are designed to be beautiful and to screen the view into your yard, I think that's slightly different than a hedge. But I can see how some people would be confused. I don't know. It may be something we want to elaborate more on. Is there a standard that you prefer? As do we care? Are we concerned about that?
Maybe if they're planted within a closer proximity together to
Mhm.
form a hedge versus arborvitae, 3 feet, another arborvitae, another,
Yeah.
to where it's more landscaping for aesthetics instead of using it as
So, yeah, so the way we look
privacy
at,
fence or privacy
Yeah.
screening.
the way
Yeah.
we've looked at it with the current code is if you put arborvitaes right next to each other, that's a hedge.
I would think
And so it needs to be trimmed down.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
have them spaced far enough apart that you can
Right.
see
Right.
between them,
Yep.
then that's a little bit different. So, I mean,
So-
that's
Yeah,
how we
that makes
interpret the code currently.
Yeah. The definition actually has a definition for hedge. It's a row of bushes or small trees planted close together which may form a barrier, enclosure, or boundary in the front yard or street side yard.
Okay.
So if they're planted close together, they make a hedge. If they're planted further apart, where there's space between them, visually and for movement, then it's not a hedge.
Okay.
But I guess that space, that 3-foot space between a 7-foot fence and the sidewalk, I mean, sure, you can put plants in there, and you could probably even put trees in there. They just can't be close together.
So then they would still have to keep trimming it if we start branching out.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Right,
Well,
so they can
especially
still
next
stay
to the
with the-
sidewalk, you have to, that would be a code violation. You're basically blocking the right of way.
Well, but not meaning going over the sidewalk, but like if they were on the inside of their fence and you said like every 3 feet, those things also start to get that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
eventually, would you require them to trim it because once they get to,
Yeah.
touching,
It's
then-
frustrating because that's an enforcement problem. Is that the development code is not intended to constantly go out and check up on people to make sure you're following it. It's mainly for the initial construction of something. But certainly that could be a problem. I think when the initial permit is reviewed, we'd want to look at how close they are planted apart and what kind of plant they are and see if they're likely to become a hedge, and then discourage people from that.
but could they also use the plant that I don't remember the name of it, you just
Arborvitae?
called it? Could they not say, well, it's not considered a bush, it's considered a tree?
But
So
it's
would they get
still,
around
the
it that way
definition of
by-
a hedge
It's still,
includes small trees.
yeah,
So,
it's all depends on the spacing, how they space it. So it doesn't matter the species, what matters is the spacing.
yep.
Features: the applicant shall install along the full length of the property frontage intersecting or encountering these features, a fence composed of metal, rock, or vinyl material with the supporting wood-treated posts placed on an adequate concrete footing. Pathway or walkway type fencing shall be installed in such a fashion as to provide better visibility from Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-48. Adjacent homes or buildings, and to assure public safety and avoid a tunneling effect associated with tall fences bordering narrow pathways. See-through pathway fencing shall not exceed 5 feet in height and solid fencing shall not exceed 4 feet in height the length of the property frontage intersecting or encountering the pathway, walkway, or greenbelt. 17.52.080 Fences required for site obscuring purposes. A site obscuring fences shall be constructed of an aluminum mesh fencing with slats or other solid non-vision type fencing of such design and material that will retain its attractiveness with nominal maintenance. The following uses are declared to require site obscuring fences: junkyards, wrecking yards, equipment or vehicle salvage storage yards, auction blocks, lumber yards, sanitary landfills, recycling collection stations, and other uses determined to be similar in nature to the aforementioned as determined by the planning director or designate. 17.52.090 Fence advertising or signage. Except as noted in item B, no signage may be installed on fencing except for advisory purposes, such as no trespassing, consistent with the sign code provisions in this development code. No such sign shall exceed 2 square feet, and no such sign shall be located closer than 20 feet from any other sign posted on the same fence. Signs may be placed on the interior side of fences which delineating athletic fields, such as the outfield fence at a baseball park. 17.52.100 Swimming pool fencing. All swimming pools shall be enclosed by a locking fence of at least 6 feet in height. An existing structure or structures may be incorporated into the fence design. Article 3
Question.
Requirements.
What's that?
Okay, so it says here, under 175290, that no sign shall exceed 2 square feet and no closer than 20 feet. Well, back here when we were talking about electric fences, etc., you had to have a sign every 15 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So this is different than that.
True.
The electric fence ones were informational.
These are talking about,
Were
And no
informational,
trespass.
not advertising type, I think is what the difference.
yeah.
At least in my thought.
Cause it said the same thing on no trespassing signs, 15 feet, I believe, back there someplace.
I thought the 15-foot rule was only for electric fences.
Maybe.
Yeah, but
As long as they're good, that's all I'm concerned
yeah,
about.
I don't see it as a problem. I think it'll be clear that that's an exception to this particular rule.
Okay.
Ready?
Okay, moving on along.
Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-49. 17.54 Landscaping. 17.54.010 Purpose. A landscaping guidelines. To guide the planting and maintenance of landscaping materials. B. Appearance. To enhance the appearance of the city, provide areas for outdoor recreation and to 1. Provide shade and wind breaks where appropriate to conserve energy in building and site design. 2. Buffer and screen conflicting land uses. 3. Provide for the landscaping of parking areas to facilitate vehicular movement and break up large areas of impervious surface. 4. Promote public safety through appropriate design principles. C. Erosion control. To prevent or reduce erosion potential on steep terrain by providing appropriate landscape materials. 17.54.020 Scope. A landscaping required. All construction, expansion, or redevelopment of structures or parking lots for commercial, multifamily, or industrial uses shall be subject to the landscaping requirements of this section. No building permit shall be issued for new construction or for additions to existing buildings without compliance with this section. B. Plan submittal. With the exception of land divisions, landscaping plans shall be submitted for all Type 2 and Type 3 land use applications. 17.54.030 Minimum area requirements. Landscaped areas may include landscaping around buildings, in open spaces and outdoor recreation areas, in islands and perimeter planting areas, in parking and loading areas, and in areas devoted to buffering and screening as required in this section and elsewhere in this code. The following area requirements shall be the minimum areas devoted to landscaping. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-50. A multifamily developments. A minimum of 25% of the gross land area shall be devoted to landscaping in multifamily developments. Interior courtyards, atriums, solar greenhouses, and roof gardens may be included with general landscaped areas in the calculation of this percentage. B. Mixed-use developments. A minimum of 15% of the gross land area shall be devoted to landscaping in mixed use combining commercial and residential development. Otherwise, single uses in the MU and MUE zones are subject to the landscaping requirements for that type of use. C. Commercial developments. Except for land in the C1 zone, a minimum of 10% of the gross land area shall be devoted to landscaping in commercial developments. D. Industrial developments. A minimum of 10% of the gross land area shall be devoted to landscaping in industrial developments. E. Expansions. For expansions of existing developments and parking lots, the minimum new landscaped area shall be determined by, first calculating the percentage of the increase of total floor area or parking area, multiplying the gross site area by this percentage of increase, multiplying the resulting area by the minimum percentage for the type of development, as noted above. 17.54.040 General Provisions. A landscaped area. For purposes of satisfying the minimum requirements of this code, a landscaped area must be planted in lawn, ground cover plants, shrubs, annuals, perennials, or trees, or desirable native vegetation, or be used for other landscape elements as defined in this code. B. Submittal requirements. A submitted landscaping plan shall include the following: 1. Type, variety, scale, and number of plants used. 2. Placement and spacing of plants. 3. Size and location of landscaped areas. 4. Contouring, shaping, and preparation of landscaped areas. 5. Use and placement of non-plant elements within the landscaping. 6. Method of irrigation. 7. Significant trees. The existing significant trees identified by their common names. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-51. Along with the size of such significant trees. Existing significant trees shall include any trees which were removed within the 1-year period prior to the date the application was first submitted. B. Which significant trees are proposed to be removed, or have been removed within the past year. C. Which significant trees are to be left standing and what steps will be taken to protect and preserve those trees. D. Location, size, and type of replacement trees proposed to be added, if any. E. As used herein, significant trees are trees having a height of more than 50 feet and / or having a trunk whose diameter is more than 12 inches at ground level. F. The above provisions include and apply to all significant trees located on the subject property or on any adjacent public right of way. C. Existing vegetation. The landscape design shall incorporate existing significant trees and vegetation preserved on the site. 17.54.050 Planting and maintenance. A planting height. No site obscuring plantings exceeding 30 inches in height shall be located within any required vision clearance area. B. Plant materials. Plant materials shall not cause a hazard. Landscape plant materials over walks, pedestrian paths, and seating areas shall be pruned to a minimum height of 8 feet and to a minimum height of 15 feet over streets and vehicular traffic areas. C. Utility interference. Landscape plant materials shall be selected which do not generally interfere with utilities above.
Hold on, I'm confused. Pedestrian landscape plant materials over walks shall be pruned to a minimum height of 8 feet and to a minimum height of 15 feet over streets and vehicular traffic areas. So that one of those should be. I'm thinking that second minimum should be maximum, right?
No. So if it's coming from the ground, it's like a shrub or a bush, it can only be 8 feet tall, pruned down to 8 feet. But if it's a tree, it needs to be pruned up to 15 feet for clearance. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's how I
Okay, so that's still kind of confusing to read.
It is.
Huh.
Well, if it's that way, I think that it should say a maximum height of 8 feet, prune to a maximum height of 8 feet, and then a minimum height of 15 feet over streets.
Yes.
If it was the way that
Oh,
it was just described.
Well, you have to
Yeah.
have.
So if it's over a street, it needs to be pruned up to
Right,
15
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we're saying that same tree could be just over a walking path and only be trimmed to 8 feet.
Yeah, because the clear vision areas, it's 8 feet right now. And that's like
Okay.
on the corner of roads and
I
whatnot,
get it.
so.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
okay, so
Walking area 8 feet, streets 15 feet.
yeah. Okay, I just wish there was a more clear way.
It's
of
not
saying-
worded the best.
What's
Yeah.
that?
I said it's not worded the best, but you can
Yeah.
stumble your way through it. Stand it.
Okay.
Single family residential, we don't require a landscape plan before final occupancy is granted.
Well,
True.
yeah, no, I mean, they
For
will,
residential areas?
subdivisions usually there's a minimum landscape plan, but just single family, no.
Okay.
And actually, it wouldn't be for duplexes, it wouldn't either.
No.
It would only be for multifamily.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Above or below ground. D. Installation. Landscape plant materials shall be properly guyed and staked to current industry standards as necessary. Stakes and guy wires shall not interfere with vehicular or pedestrian traffic. E. Suitability. Plant materials shall be suited to the conditions under which they will be growing. As an example, plants to be grown in exposed, windy areas that will not. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-52. Be irrigated should be sufficiently hardy to thrive under these conditions. Plants should have vigorous root systems, and be sound, healthy, free from defects, diseases, and infections. F. Deciduous trees. Deciduous trees should be fully branched, have a minimum caliper of 1 1/4 inches, and a minimum height of 8 feet at the time of planting. G. Evergreen trees. Evergreen trees shall be a minimum of 6 feet in height, fully branched at time of planting. H. Shrubbery. Shrubs shall be supplied in a minimum 1-gallon containers or 8-inch burlap balls with a minimum spread of 12 to 15 inches. Ground cover. Ground cover plants shall be spaced in accordance with current nursery industry standards to achieve covering of the planting area. Rows of plants are to be staggered for a more effective covering. Ground cover shall be supplied in a minimum 4-inch size container or a 2 1/4-inch container or equivalent if planted 18 inches on center. J. Irrigation. All developments are required to provide appropriate methods of irrigation for the landscaping. Sites with over 1,000 square feet of landscaped area shall be irrigated with automatic sprinkler systems to ensure the continued health and attractiveness of the plant materials. Sprinkler heads shall not cause any hazard to the public. Irrigation shall not be required in wooded areas, wetlands, floodplains, or along natural drainage channels or stream banks. K. Replanting. Trees or shrubbery which die off shall be replaced with a new plant of the same or similar type. Replacement is ultimately the responsibility of the property owner. L. Maintenance. Landscaping shall be continually maintained. Appropriate methods of care and maintenance of landscaped plant material shall be provided by the owner of the property. M. Plant protection. Landscape plant material shall be protected from damage due to heavy foot traffic or vehicular traffic by protective tree grates, pavers or other suitable methods.
Any questions on that?
Nope.
Alright, we are at 8 o'clock. I'm gonna go to 8:30. Does anybody need to beg for mercy?
Please no.
Up to you guys.
Up to you guys. You guys want to leave or what?
8:30 works for me.
I was expecting 8:30.
Well, you're at home. 8:30 is good.
True story. I got my jammies on.
I've got a long 5-minute commute.
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Methods. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-53. 17.56 Yard and Lot Standards. 17.56.010 New buildings shall be on a lot. Every building erected shall be located on a lot as herein defined. 17.56.020 yards apply only to one building. No required yard or other open space or required driveway provided around or for any building or structure for the purpose of complying with the provisions of this development code shall be considered as providing a yard or open space for any other building. No yard or other required space on an adjoining lot shall be considered as providing a yard or open space on the lot whereon the building is to be erected. 17.56.030 Front yard projections. The following features, when not more than 1 story high, may project into the front yard setback area, provided the projection shall come no closer than 10 feet from the property line: planter boxes, chimneys and flues, steps, cornices, eaves, gutters, belt courses, leaders, sills, pilasters, lintels, and other ornamental features, uncovered porches, covered but unenclosed porches. 17.56.040 Side yard projections. Cornices, eaves, gutters and fire escapes may project into a required side yard not more than 1/3 of the width of the required side yard. B. Chimneys, flues, belt courses, leaders, sills, pilasters, lintels and ornamental features may project not more than 1.5 feet into a required side yard, provided the chimneys and flues shall not exceed 6 feet in width. C. Uncovered decks and patios attached to the main building, and no more than 3 feet in height when measured directly beneath the outside edge of the deck or patio, may be extended to the side yard property line. This provision shall exclude street side yards. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-54. 17.56.050 Rear yard projections. Chimneys, flues, belt courses, leaders, sills, pilasters, lintels, gutters and other ornamental features, may project not more than 1.5 feet into a required rear yard, provided the chimneys and flues shall not exceed 6 feet in width. B. A fire escape, balcony, outside stairway, cornice or other unenclosed, unroofed projections may project not more than 5 feet into a required rear yard. C. The following features, when not more than 1 story high, may project into the rear yard setback area, planter boxes, chimneys, and flues, steps, cornices, eaves, gutters, belt courses, leaders, sills, pilasters, lintels, and other ornamental features, uncovered porches, covered but unenclosed porches. D. No permitted projection into a required rear yard shall extend within 10 feet of the center line of an alley or within 5 feet of a rear lot line if no alley exists. 17.56.060 Vision clearance. A clear vision area shall be maintained where streets and private points of access intersect. The clear vision area shall conform to the following. A measurement. A clear vision area at an intersection shall be the triangular area established according to the following procedure. 1. A line extending a certain number of feet from the intersection along a public street right-of-way. 2. A line extending a certain number of feet from the intersection along the intersecting axis. 3. A third line that creates the triangular clear vision area by connecting the ends of the lines described in 1 and 2, above. B. Street driveway. The clear vision area for a street driveway intersection shall be 10 feet along the driveway from its intersection with the street right-of-way and 20 feet along the street right-of-way at the point of intersection with the driveway. C. Street alley. The clear vision area for street alley intersections shall be 10 feet along the alley from its intersection with the street right-of-way and 20 feet along the street right-of-way at the point of intersection with the alley. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-55. D. Street Private Access Easement. The clear vision area for street access easement intersections shall be 10 feet along the access easement from its intersection with the street right-of-way and 20 feet along the street right-of-way at the point of intersection with the access easement. E. Corner lots, street-street intersection. The clear visions area for corner lots shall be 20 feet along the right-of-way of each intersecting street. F. Prohibited development. A clear vision area shall contain no planting, fence, wall, structure, or temporary or permanent obstruction exceeding 36 inches in height, measured from the top of the curb or, where no curb exists, from the established street center line grade, except that the following may be allowed in the clear vision area. 1. Trees, provided all branches and foliage are removed to a height of 8 feet above grade. 2. Telephone, power, and cable television poles, and 3. Telephone switch boxes, provided they are less than 10 inches wide at the widest dimension. G. Exemption. Clear visions areas shall not be required at intersections containing traffic signals.
All right, any questions on that one? All right.
Signals. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-56. 17.58 Land Divisions. 17.58.010 Purpose. The purpose of this chapter is to provide for the orderly, safe, and efficient division of land within the city. 17.58.020 Scope. The provisions of this chapter shall apply to all partitions and subdivisions within the city of Sweet Home. The following shall determine the appropriate process and design standards. A partition. A land division creating 2 or 3 parcels within a calendar year shall be processed as a partition and subject to the design and improvement standards for a partition. B. Subdivision. A land division creating 4 or more lots within a calendar year shall be processed as a subdivision and subject to the design and improvement standards for a subdivision. C. Serial partition. If a partition results in the creation of a large parcel that can be subsequently divided so that there is the potential to create more than 3 parcels from the original, the request shall be processed as a subdivision and subject to the design and improvement standards for a subdivision. 17.58.030 Standards for lots or parcels. The following standards shall apply to all partitions and subdivisions. A minimum lot area. Minimum lot area shall conform to the requirements of the zoning district in which the parcel is located. Access easements, or the access strip to a flag lot, shall not be included in the calculation of lot area for purposes of determining compliance with any minimum lot size provision of this development code. B. Lot width and depth. The depth of a lot or parcel shall not be more than 3 times the width. Lots or parcels created for commercial, industrial, or public uses shall be exempt from width to depth ratio provisions. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-57. C. Access. All new lots or parcels shall access a public street. Except that, residential lots or parcels may be accessed by a private access easement developed in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 17.42 when it is determined that a public street access is 1. Infeasible due to parcel shape, terrain, or location of existing structures, 2. Unnecessary to provide for the future development of adjoining property. 3. No more than 10% of the lots within a subdivision may be accessed by a private street or private access easement. D. Flag lots. Flag lots shall be subject to the following development standards. 1. The access strip shall be a minimum of 20 feet in width. The improved surface shall be a minimum of 14 feet in width. 2. The access strip shall not be included in the lot area calculation. 3. If the length of the access strip exceeds 150 feet, the parcel or lot shall include a turnaround area per applicable fire district requirements. E. Through lots. Through lots shall be avoided except where essential to provide separation of residential development from traffic arteries, adjacent non-residential activities, or to overcome specific disadvantages of topography. Screening or buffering, pursuant to the provision of Chapter 17.309, may be required during the review of the land division request. F. Lot sidelines. The sidelines of lots, as far as practicable, shall run at right angles to the public street, private street, or private access easement upon which the lot or parcel faces. G. Utility easements. Utility easements shall be provided on lot areas where necessary to accommodate public utilities. Easement width shall conform to adopted engineering standards. 17.58.040 Additional standards for subdivisions. A general. The length, width, and shape of blocks shall be designed with regard to providing adequate building sites for the use contemplated, consideration of needs for convenient access, circulation, control, and safety of street traffic, including pedestrian and bicyclist, and recognition of limitations and opportunities of topography. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-58. B. Sizes. Blocks shall not exceed 1,000 feet in between street lines with a preferred length of 500 feet. Exceptions are permitted for blocks adjacent to arterial streets, or, if the previous development pattern or topographical conditions justify a greater length. The recommended minimum distance between collector street intersections with arterial streets is 1,800 feet. C. Traffic circulation. The subdivision shall be laid out to provide safe, convenient, and direct vehicle, bicycle and pedestrian access to nearby residential areas, neighborhood activity centers, example schools and parks, shopping areas, and employment centers, and provide safe, convenient, and direct traffic circulation. At a minimum, nearby means the distance from the subdivision boundary, 1/4 mile for pedestrians, and 1 mile for bicyclists. D. Connectivity. To achieve the objective in C. Traffic circulation, above, the city may require the following: 1. Stub-end streets, where the potential exists for additional residential development on adjacent property. The city may require reserve strips and streets plugs to preserve the objectives of street extensions. 2. Access sways, public access sways to provide a safe, efficient, and direct connection to cul-de-sac streets, to pass through oddly shaped or blocks longer than 600 feet, to provide for networks of public paths creating access to nearby residential areas, neighborhood activity centers, example schools and parks, shopping areas, and employment centers. E-collector and arterial connections. Access sway, bikeway, or sidewalk connections with adjoining arterial and collector streets shall be provided if any portion of the site's arterial or collector street frontage is over 600 feet from either a subdivision access street or other access sway. The placement of an access sway may be modified or eliminated if natural features, example adverse topography, streams, wetlands, preclude such a connection. F. Design standards. Pedestrian/bicycle access sways shall meet the following design standards: 1. Minimum dedicated width, 10 feet 2. Minimum improved width, 8 feet 3. The access sway shall be designed to prohibit vehicle traffic. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning
Yes.
Committee, Draft 3-59. 17.58.050 Improvement Requirements, Partition. During the review of partition proposals, the city shall require, as a condition of approval, the following improvements. A private access. Where included, private driveways serving flag lots, or private easements shall be surfaced per the requirements of this development code.
Question.
Frontage improvements.
What was that?
Back there on F, design standards. The pedestrian bicycle, there's a typo there, minimum dedicated width instead of width.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah, good catch. Thank you. I missed that one.
Improvements. The following improvements shall be required. 1. Consistent with the adopted transportations plans, sufficient land shall be dedicated to establish the appropriate right-of-way width. 2. If the street frontage of the subject property is less than or equal to 250 feet and does not connect to existing improvements, the applicant shall sign a non-remonstrance agreement with the City of Sweet Home. This agreement shall stipulate that the applicant, or future property owner, will agree to participate in right-of-way improvements. The agreement may include provisions for the following: street paving, curbing, sidewalks, water lines, storm sewer facilities and sanitary sewer facilities. The agreement shall be recorded at the county clerk's office at the time of the recording of the final plat. 3. If the street frontage of the subject property exceeds 250 feet, or extends an existing dedicated right-of-way, the applicant shall improve the following. A public streets upon which the property fronts to public standards, including surfacing from center line to curb, installation of curbing, storm sewers, sanitary sewers, water lines and other necessary public utilities per approved master plans. Where a master plan has not been adopted, the developer shall enter into a non-remonstrance agreement consistent with item B.1, above. B. Sidewalks, meeting city standards, along public street frontage. Sidewalk construction may be deferred until such time a building permit is issued. C. The installation of storm sewers, sanitary sewers, water lines, and other utilities necessary to serve parcels accessing off of the new street. C. Public facilities. Sewer, water, and storm drainage facilities may be required on and adjacent to the project. The developer shall submit engineering plans or facility improvement plans to the city for review. The plans shall address the Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-60. Required improvements contained in this article, and any conditions of approval, and shall conform with city engineering design standards. The plans shall be reviewed and approved prior to the recording of the final partition plat. Completion requirements. All required improvements shall be completed prior to the issuance of any building permits for the subject property. Alternatively, improvements required under this section may be assured through a performance bond or other instrument acceptable to the city prior to the approval of the final plat of the partition. 17.58.060 Improvement Requirements, Subdivision. A. Improvements. The following improvements shall be required for all subdivisions. 1. Frontage improvements. Half-street improvements designed to the city's engineering standards shall be required for all public streets on which a proposed subdivision fronts. Additional frontage improvements shall include sidewalks, curbing, storm sewer, sanitary sewer, water lines, other public utilities as necessary, and such other improvements as the city shall determine to be reasonably necessary to serve the development or the immediate neighborhood. 2. Project streets. Streets within the subdivision shall be constructed as required by city engineering standards. 3. Monuments. Monuments shall be established as required by the engineering design standards. 4. Surface drainage and storm sewer system. Drainage facilities shall be provided within the subdivision and to connect the subdivision drainage to drainageways or to storm sewers outside the subdivision. Design of drainage within the subdivision shall be constructed in accordance with the engineering design standards. In the circumstance where existing storm sewer lines are adjacent to or within the project, a connection charge is required in accordance with the city's adopted connection charges ordinance. 5. Sanitary sewers. Sanitary sewer shall be installed to serve the subdivision and to connect the subdivision to existing mains both on and off the property being subdivided conforming to engineering design standards. The city may require that the developer construct sewage lines of a size in excess of that necessary to adequately service the development in question, where such facilities are or will be necessary to serve the entire area within which the development is located when the area is ultimately. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-61. Developed. The city may also require that the construction take place as an assessment project with such arrangement with the developer as is desirable to assure his share of the construction. In the circumstance where existing sanitary sewer lines are adjacent to or within the project, a connection charge is required in accordance with the city's adopted connection charges ordinance. 6. Water system. Water lines with valves and fire hydrants serving the subdivision and connecting the subdivision to the city mains shall be installed in conformance with the engineering design standards. The design shall take into account provisions for extension beyond the subdivision to adequately grid the city system and to serve the area within which the development is located when the area is fully developed. However, the city will not expect the developer to pay for the extra cost of mains exceeding 8 inches in size. In the circumstance where existing water lines are adjacent to or within the project, a connection charge is required in accordance with the city's adopted connection charges ordinance. 7. Sidewalks. Sidewalks shall be installed along both sides of each public street and in any pedestrian ways within the subdivision. This improvement may be deferred until prior to occupancy of a dwelling. 8. Street lights. The installation of street lights is required at locations, and of a type required by city standards. 9. Street signs. The installation of street name signs and traffic control signs is required at locations determined to be appropriate by the city and shall be of a type required by city standards. 10. Other requirements. Curb cuts and driveway installations are not required of the developer at the time of development, but if installed, shall be according to the city standards. B. Street tree planting is not required of the developer, but, if planted, shall be according to city requirements and of a species compatible with the width of the planting strip and underground facilities. At least one tree will be located in the planting strip. An additional tree shall be planted either in the planting strip or yard adjacent to the street or streets. Trees must be planted and viable prior to occupancy. B. Completion of improvements. All improvements required under this chapter shall be completed to city standards, or assured through a performance bond or other. Article 3 Development Requirements.
Pause.
Sweet Home Development Code.
So going back to sidewalks, says back on section 7 there, sidewalks shall be installed along both sides of each public street and any pedestrian ways within the subdivision. This improvement may be deferred until prior to occupancy of a dwelling. Our current standard has been to require all sidewalks in an entire subdivision to be built all at the same time, because we've had a number of subdivisions where, for whatever reason, one lot or another lot hasn't sold and remain undeveloped, and there's basically a hole in the sidewalk network for a
This
very
kind
long
of
time.
patchwork.
My street in particular has that, where there's sidewalks in front of every single house except for one vacant lot where there's no sidewalk at all, and you just have this weird path that all the kids in the neighborhood have worn, and it's very annoying. So that's something that I would suggest that we change and basically say that sidewalks have to be built at the time of development of the subdivision. Is that agreeable, or am I off
Yep.
base?
Yep.
Okay.
Agreeable.
Is the city's adopted connection charges ordinance?
That's something I need to look into. I'm thinking that's the system development charges. And so we probably ought to clean up the terminology and make sure that it's fitting. So I'll need to investigate that.
Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-62. Instrument acceptable to the city attorney, prior to the approval of the final plat of the subdivision. In no case shall the bond exceed 5% of the remaining project improvements as determined by the city engineer. 17.58.070 Improvement Procedures. In addition to engineering design standards, improvements installed by a developer for any land division, either as a requirement of these regulations or the developer's option, shall conform to the requirements of this development code, the improvement standards and specifications adopted by the city, and shall be installed in accordance with the following procedures. A city approval required. Improvement work shall not commence until plans are approved by the city. All plans shall be prepared in accordance with requirements of the city. B. Notification. Improvement work shall not commence until the city has been notified in advance, and, if work has been discontinued for any reason, it shall not be resumed until the city has been notified. C. Inspections. Improvements shall be constructed under the inspection and to the satisfaction of the Public Works Director or his/her designee. The city may require changes in typical street sections and improvements if unusual conditions arise during construction to warrant such changes. D. Installation of utilities. All underground utilities, sanitary sewers, and storm drains installed by the developer shall be constructed prior to the surfacing of the streets. Stubs for service connections for underground utilities and sanitary sewers shall be placed to a length eliminating the necessity for disturbing the street improvements when service connections are made. E. As-built drawings. A map or plan showing all public improvements as built shall be filed with the Department of Public Works upon completion of the improvements. Article 3 Development Requirements. Sweet Home Development Code, 2021 Planning Commission Draft 3-63. 17.58.080 Segregation of Assessments. Whenever property has been assessed in its entirety and there is an intent to divide the property into lots or parcels, the owner of the subject property may file a written request with the finance director for a segregation of the assessment. B. Requests for the segregation of liens shall include the following: 1. A description of the property to be divided. 2. A current copy of a recorded deed with Linn County Deed Records, volume, and page numbers or instrument number, showing ownership of the subject property. C. Upon receipt of the application request, the finance director shall calculate the total amount of assessment eligible for segregation according to the method of apportionment used in the original improvement assessment, unless inappropriate because of special circumstances. The eligible portion of the assessment shall be determined by the Public Works Director, or designee, according to the value of the original construction costs. The assessment will then be prorated by each lot or parcel. Article.
All right, so this last part, this is talking about the tax assessment, isn't it? And then we don't do that. That's county. So I'm thinking this last portion can probably be gotten rid of entirely. I'll need to check with Walt and make sure, but I don't know why we would want to get involved in that. Yeah, I'll have to investigate that. Any questions on that or other issues you saw? I know this is too thrilling to stop, but I don't think we're gonna get through another section. Yeah. Right. So I'm thinking this is probably the right time to hang it up and have the computer rest.
Thank you, computer.
Right. All right. Anything else for the good of the order before we close? Or before I turn it back over to Commissioner Stevens to close this meeting?
We do. I forgot to write it down. We do right now have a couple partitions, property line adjustments. We have another zone change. Which one would be? I'm still focused on Harvest Festival. I forgot to look at my board. So we do have, I think you have one application coming up on the 1st and then one coming up in the middle of October. So
the 24th Avenue petition is coming up, right? That's what I mean, the conditional use for that. Right. Yeah, things are good. We're,
Anything back on the site visit?
I just barely submitted yesterday a bunch of follow-up information that they asked for, and they were asking for some more down in the weeds, nitty-gritty stuff. My understanding is that after this, they will put together their short list, and I don't know exactly what their procedure is at that point, but I'm thinking they'll probably kind of they may do a second visit. I don't know. It'll be other people if they do, other people visiting, and it'll kind of start getting into the negotiation of land and incentives and stuff like that. They asked for all sorts of information on what kind of incentives could be offered to bring them here. So we provided all that stuff. And then I think on Monday, I believe they have a call into the railroad to get information from the railroad on all their services. I know, hopefully the railroad doesn't screw it up for me. They really want a new customer, and so I think they probably are going to be, as accommodating as they possibly can be. Because they're pretty happy that I've at least brought them a potential customer. So.
I saw Lynn County rejected all offers.
For the mill property, they rejected everything. And so we're kind of back to square one. We don't know what they're going to do. I know others at this on the council and Ray are probably more upset about it than I am. I am annoyed with it and how long it's taking, but I would be more annoyed if the property was clean. And they're still working on the cleanup, and once it has an actual NFA granted by DEQ, then we can say, okay, that now it's free and clear. You're going to get reasonable offers. But it's kind of frustrating that they didn't get the attention that they wanted for it. And and having seen some of the offers, I can't say they're wrong. I didn't think they were that great. Some of them were kind of lowball, and some of them were stuff that we don't need anyway. Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. But there it goes. Any other questions? Anything else we can do for you? All right. Thank you. I think we made some good progress tonight. We'll get through this eventually. Yeah. I like having the computer read it. I think what we can do is we can make a PDF that we can take the Word document and remove all the headers and footers and make a PDF of that so that it can read it to us without, yeah. Anyway.
Greg, you want to adjourn us? With your gavel.
Okay, without a gavel, we adjourn this meeting at 8:31.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Have a good night.
Right on.
See you later.
Do I need to leave this?